Well, viewers, we have reached the final part of our Highlander retrospective as we cover the last two films released, both released on the Sci-Fi Channel and direct-to-video. The first is actually an animated film from Japan, entitled Highlander: The Search for Vengeance. It was directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri, the director of Ninja Scroll, and it was actually written by David Abramowitz, who was the head writer, if you remember, of Highlander the series and Highlander the Raven. We got to experience the adventures of an all-new immortal named Colin MacLeod. He was born back in the time of the Roman Empire, and he only adopts the name MacLeod once he joins the Scottish clan centuries later. He seeks revenge on the person who killed his wife, the Roman Marcus Octavius. In many ways, it's an amalgamation of the first two films. The main story is set in a post-apocalyptic future, since Highlander just loves those, and the flashbacks parallel the first film almost too much, although not to the extent of the third film. And as anime, it's not the most impressive, new, exciting thing you'll ever see. At times it's even a little cliche. That's not to say that it's bad. In fact, for what it is, it's quite good. And if you're looking for a nice, fun romp that holds up better than most of the sequels in the series, you might as well go with Highlander: The Search for Vengeance. I can't even come close to saying that for the other film that came out in 2007, Highlander: The Source, the fifth live-action film, the first to go direct-to-video and direct-to-sci-fi, and directed by Brett Leonard, the next music video director in the Highlander filmography. Filmed in 2005 in Lithuania, Highlander: The Source is just a complete mess. The only thing you could possibly say that it has going for it is continuity, as it bothers to follow up on the plots of Highlander the series and Highlander Endgame. Leonard made the terrible, terrible mistake of deciding to shoot the whole film on digital video, and so it looks extremely cheap, almost at the quality of a fan film. The magnificent score provided in the film by George Callis cannot bring splendor to the truly ugly compositions all throughout the film, nor can it hide the terrible incompetence of all the extremely cheap digital effects. The editing is a mess, no matter if you're watching the original Russian release that was never supposed to see the light of day, or if you're seeing what we got in America. But unlike Highlander 2, mere editing can't be the blame for just how terrible this movie is. The plot could have been interesting. It's a small band of immortals, including Duncan MacLeod and Mythos from the television series, coming together to seek the source, some strange anomaly that happens every few thousand years. They must face a new villain called the Guardian, who's far more powerful than anything they've ever faced. Super speed, greater agility, etc., etc. The problem is that he's also a complete buffoon, and you can't take him seriously. He's just yet another Kurgan ripoff, and very easily the worst we've seen. Providing his own cover of Who Wants to Live Forever, which is only slightly more tolerable than the covers of Who Wants to Live Forever and Princes of the Universe that appear on the soundtrack, because they were too cheap to pay for the rights to the Queen originals. The Immortals start losing their immortality as they approach the source. This would be an interesting idea if it weren't slapped together with a bunch of other really strange and often terrible ideas. Lionsgate, for some reason, wanted them to give the movie more of a horror movie slant, so in the third act, they arrive on an island filled with cannibals, and we engage in chases, some wicker men being burned, and the farmhouse straight out of Night of the Living Dead showing up. It all leads to a ludicrous climax with Looney Tunes-esque sword fighting, which, by the way, is some of the very little sword fighting that shows up in this movie, let alone decapitations. We only get 2 of those, and one of them doesn't even provide us a quickening. But the conclusion also drops on us such a narrative bomb that does far more damage to the whole franchise than Highlander 2's extraterrestrial explanation ever could have hoped to. It it destroys the entire point of the franchise and leaves the whole series with little to no meaning. Throw in some poor supporting actors, including the Cardinal Giovanni, who has the most ridiculous haircut you'll see in any Highlander film, and you just have a movie that's quite unwatchable even for the most diehard fan. It somehow manages to be, without a doubt, the worst thing with the word Highlander on it. And that is quite an accomplishment. So that is the fall from grace that is Highlander. From an enjoyable cult flick back in 1986 to a 2007 mess that throws away the concept of there can be only one to replace it with nonsense about immortals being good enough to give birth to a child in a blue stream that forms when the planets align in a post-apocalyptic Lithuania. This has been M.A. Moreno rambling on about Highlander for 5 videos too long. And I hope you'll enjoy me for further misadventures in exploring bad and decent cinema. And until then, I'll just keep reminding you that I put the cool in Cine-cool. Okay, now, MAPSA.
What's that going to be?
We're just going to have to find a moral in these two films.